The Universality of Islam Part 8. Universality and Solving Problems of Humanity. 2. Crime. Crime in its different forms, organized crime, street crimes, state crimes, social crimes, etc., is considered a major threat to peace and security in our world. However, discussing in detail the magnitude of the problem of crime as a universal catastrophe is beyond the scope of this study. A summary of statistics that describe the spread of some crimes in the U.S. The Uniform Crime Report, UCR, issued by the U.S. Federal Bureau of Investigation, FBI, revealed that the number of reported crimes in the U.S., as in the table above, increased by 5% in the years from 1976 to 1995. Arrests in 1985 totaled 11.9 million. An increase of 3% over 1,984.92, though the numbers presented are extremely high for the most prosperous nation that presumably has one of the most advanced security systems. The UCR figures are widely believed by criminologists to be low. A more reliable index is probably the U.S. Bureau of Justice Statistics National Crime Survey, NCS, an annual report on household crime victimization based on census surveyors. This survey covers crimes not reported to police. Its 1985 survey showed that 25%, 1 in every 4 households in the U.S., had experienced crimes against individual members of the household or against the household itself during that year. Regardless of the costly efforts by the FBI and the high loss of lives among police officers 94 to reduce crime rates in the United States, the reversal is occurring. According to FBI Uniform Crime Reports, 1995, the number of total reported offenses including murder, property crimes, rape, robbery, etc. has increased from 11,349,700 crimes in 1976 to 14,872. 900 in 1992, an increase of 3,537,200 reported offenses. 95, and according to the most recent statistics from the Justice Department's Bureau of Justice Statistics, at the end of 2006. Roughly 1 in every 31 adults in the United States was in prison or jail, or on parole or in supervised release. 96 After all these facts, can any sensible human being claim that the prime superpower and the leader of the New World Order that has gravely failed to reduce crime in its cities will succeed in restoring peace and security to the remainder of the world? According to FBI Uniform Crime Reports, 1995, the number of total reported offenses including murder, property crimes, rape, robbery, etc. has increased from 11,349,700 crimes in 1976 to 14,872. 900 in 1992, an increase of 3,537,200 reported offenses. After all these facts, can any sensible human being claim that the prime superpower and the leader of the New World Order that has gravely failed to reduce crime in its cities will succeed in restoring peace and security to the remainder of the world? As these statistics show, crime 97 in its various forms has become a major threat to societal and individual security. Crime from a Western perspective has been defined as an act by a member of a given social group, which by the rest of the members of that group regard as so injurious or as showing such a degree of antisocial attitude in the perpetrator that the group publicly, overtly and collectively reacts by trying to abrogate, abolish, some of his rights cited from the President's Commission on Law Enforcement and the Administration of Justice. Nevertheless, most of the methods used to fight against crime have backfired and are far short of meeting such a challenge. According to some recent statistics from the Bureau of Justice, during the late 1970s there were about 268,000 prison inmates in all 50 states. By the end of 2006, there were over 2.4 million. Despite this drastic increase, crime rates remained high. 98 Most of the statistical data collected are about Western societies, due to the availability of documentation on the matter. The failure of the Western methods of combating crime, as attested by the continual rise of crime rates, leads one to suggest a solution which treats criminal activity not piecemeal but within the total scheme of life, a system that had restored peace and security to the lives of people from all nations that were under its folds. The Islamic solution. The Islamic concept of security is a very comprehensive one, more comprehensive than any of the other existing systems. It looks at humankind in relation to the universe and its mass-influencing factors. Islamic teachings do not merely provide solutions to what is considered to be exceptional behavior in the form of crime, but emphatically focus on measures that prevent its occurrence. In other words, Islam provides as many means as possible to avert temptation. While modern societies flaunt temptation, liquor, pornography, violence, etc., before the people, a true Islamic society removes the sources of these temptations. And when the need for correction emerges, the punishment is serious and effective. In most modern societies, crime has prospered because a completely contradictory approach is followed. All forms of temptation are prevalent. When it comes to correction, it is done leniently and frivolously. It is often biased and protective of the criminal's rights over those of the victim. Islamic teachings, through the various practical forms of worship like salah, the 5 daily prayers, fasting and zakah, poor due, aim at fostering the feelings of inner peace and security, responsibility towards others and mutual respect. In addition to their spiritual and moral functions, they work as prevention against committing all evil behaviors. In a video film by the Christian Science Monitor about Islam in America, a large portion was devoted to describing the lives of maximum security prison inmates before and after becoming Muslims. Before reverting to Islam, many were serial killers, drug smugglers and addicts, and professional criminals. When they embraced Islam while in prison, they turned into dignified, secure and contributing citizens. Western statistical indexes show that in the majority of maximum security prisons, the criminals get involved in criminal acts and end up back in prison. Based on the Bureau of Justice, BJS, of all prisoners released in 1994, the most recent nationwide study by the BJS, 67.5% were arrested within 3 years. 99 as a matter of fact. In a recent article titled, "Would God Use Prison to Rehabilitate Criminal Minds?" the author emphasized that the problems inherent with this system have remained the same for years. Recidivism, repeated relapse in criminal acts, overcrowding, cost and, most tellingly despite the large amount of funding, the utter inability to reduce crime. Such statistics are reversed when those inmates become Muslims, according to Christian Science Monitor. The success of Islam in providing the best solution to crimes in the midst of the American society where all types of correction programs have failed is strong prevalent evidence for the universality of Islam and the pressing need for the adoption of its teaching. 3. Abuse of children and women. People tend to think of the family as a social institution in which love and affection prosper. An establishment whose stockholders exchange support and care. In reality, the family in most modern world societies has become completely the opposite of what it is assumed to be. The problem is more pervasive in most modern societies all over the world. 101 According to American official statistics of crime, 20% of homicidal crimes take place within the family. According to Russian government records, in the year 1993 alone, 14,500 Russian women were murdered by their husbands. Another 56,400 were disabled or seriously injured. Domestic violence statistics of crimes against women in England and the United States are alarming. According to Home Office research, 18% of homicides in England and Wales are of wives killed by their husbands, with a quarter of all recorded violent crimes blamed on domestic violence. And since children are the weakest members of the family, a greater rate of abuse is directed towards them. Child abuse is understood to cover a wide range of parental actions that result in harm being inflicted on children of all ages. The kind of abuse, however, varies with age. Infants and preschool children are most likely to suffer deliberately inflicted fractures, burns, and bruises. This is known as the battered child syndrome, firmly identified during the 1960s. Historically, reported cases of sexual abuse, ranging from molestation to incest, primarily involve male perpetrators and school-aged or adolescent female victims. More recently, however, a growing number of preschooled victims and male victims have been identified. 104 It has been estimated that the number of reported cases of child abuse has increased at the rate of 30% a year. Between 1973 and 1982 there were 1.5 million cases of child abuse, 50,000 resulted in death and 300,000 in permanent injuries. 105 Child abuse is not restricted to the US. In Great Britain, for example, the National Society for the Prevention of Cruelty to Children reports that child abuse has increased by about 70% between 1979 and 1984. 106 Based a report in The Guardian, in America, the number of crimes against women is rising significantly faster than any other crime. According to the latest statistics, an estimated 3 to 4 million women every year are battered by their husbands or the men they live with. A third of female murder victims were killed by their husbands or boyfriends. 4. Rape and sexual harassment. An extensive report about crime in the Epsilon issue of August 1991 reveals the magnitude of rape crimes committed in the West. The report stated that in a country like Greece whose population does not exceed 8 million, more than 10,000 reported incidents of rape were committed between 1978 to 1987. During 1982 alone, more than 4,000 incidents of rape were committed in Italy alone. More than 55,000 rape crimes took place in France during the 1980s. As for the United States, about 102,000 rapes have been reported. Recently, the Federal Bureau of Investigation, FBI, reported a 70% increase of crimes of forcible rape and attempted incidents of rape from the year 1970 to 1997. In 1970, only 37,990 incidents of rape were reported in comparison to 109,060 incidents in 1992 alone. As it is for rape crimes, sexual harassment against employed women is on the rise too. According to the Equal Employment Opportunity Commission, the number of complaints of female employees because of sexual harassment is on the increase. In 1989, 5,603 incidents of sexual harassment complaints were filed in comparison to 12,537 in 1993. The Equal Employment Opportunity Commission stated that reported sexual harassment complaints by female employees were 10,578 cases during the year 1992. In 1993, the number increased to be 12,537 cases. 111 The problem is not only restricted to the USA, but rather a global one, especially in societies that put no restrictions in men-women relations. According to a recent report by the International Labour Organization, ILO, entitled Combating Sexual Harassment at Work, November 1992. Many thousands of women are victims of sexual harassment at the workplace in the industrialized world every year. Between 15 to 30% of women questioned in surveys by the ILO say they have been subject to frequent, gross sexual harassment. Of all women surveyed in the United States, 42% of women reported some kind of sexual harassment. The report included countries like Australia, Austria, Denmark, France, Germany, Japan and the United Kingdom, where the Labour Research Department made a survey in 1987 in which 75% of women responding to the questionnaire reported that they had undergone some form of sexual harassment in their workplaces. The Epsilon magazine continued by reporting the observations of leading psychologists, sociologists and physicians on the escalating incidence of rape crimes. These scientists have affirmed that this phenomenon does not occur in the animal world and is not a part of their behavior. Moreover, they link the emergence of such a devastating problem in the West and Western-like societies where such habits and values are reinforced due to several factors, among which are 1. The media. It is one of the main factors for sensationalizing rape. TV films and movies show lots of violence, which include rape crimes. Most of the movies revolve around sexual and violent episodes, not just X-rated movies. Such presentations work as stimuli for imitation by the youth. 2. Intoxication has been reported as another reason, behind 37.6% of reported rapes. 3. Commercial factors were also behind the increase of rape and related crimes. The design of clothes by international houses that show the attractive body parts of women results in many rape crimes against these women who exaggerate revealing their private body parts for the sake of public approval and attraction. A great number of rapists mentioned that the majority of their victims were of this type. Many raped women have indicated that they were raped while they were wearing exposing and attractive clothes. 4. An educational factor exemplified through mixed education where children of both sexes are taught how to develop intimate relations with each other. Learning how to date is only one example. As a matter of fact, popular radio programs, such as the Dr. Ruth's infamous program in Canada and in the United States, are devoted to advising the public on how to establish sexual relationships. 5. The collapse of the family has forced young people at an early age to seek love outside the family. On many occasions this has led to very grave consequences. Hundreds of thousands of children in the West do not have known fathers. 6. Detaching the role of religion from the public life has brought about promiscuity. 7. Since most Western societies are built on the basis of Christian values, some inaccurate religious attitudes towards women as evil personalities might have led to such incidents of viewing women as worthy of becoming the object of rape. 8. Another reason that the scientists gave was that the law in most Western countries does not take the crime of rape very seriously. Rapists are not punished severely, usually a mild sentence of no more than 2 years in prison is given as a maximum judgment. In Hindu society, on the other hand, the life of women whose husbands have perished becomes unbearable to the extent that they have to commit sati, a form of suicide. Gustave Le Bon wrote about this aspect of the Indian society by saying, "The immolation of widows on the funeral of their husbands is not mentioned in the Shastra, but it appears that the practice had become quite common in India. For we find references to it in the accounts of Greek chroniclers. This disdain for females is also seen in reports by the Indian media, which report that great numbers of young girls are buried alive because the females are viewed as an economic burden to their parents." The Times reported the one-child-only policy applied in China nowadays has led many Chinese to desire a male child and either abort female babies or kill their female toddlers or sell their older girls to mobile slave merchants. In this regard, the Chinese police have recently arrested 49 members of a gang whose job was to buy, smuggle, and sell girls all over China. As a result of this savage treatment of female children in China, the Chinese Committee for State Planning reported that the number of males is 36 million more than the number of females. The treatment of women and children in present secularist societies, whether in American, Europe, Russia, the UK, India or China, is very similar to that of the pre-Islamic society, Jahiliyyah. Islam came to abolish the abuse of women and children and to restore dignity to women, young and old alike. Because of the social chaos that is taking place in many Western societies, abuse is not only directed towards the weak members of the society as indicated above but rather towards those in charge of educating and disciplining. Based on a report by the Carnegie Foundation, the percentage of teachers in the US who say that they have been verbally abused was 51%. As for those who have been threatened with injury was 16%, but those who have been physically attacked were 7%. Away from what the law considers as rape or sexual harassment in Western society, there is an alarming moral decay. In the US, 3 out of every 4 unmarried white women have affairs by the age of 19. The figure was 6% in the year 1900.1181 out every 4 children is born out of the wedlock. Not including millions of children who are aborted. 119 Europe is having a great resemblance to the US. In Canada, the number of out-of-wedlock births escalated from 4% in 1960 to 31% in 2000. From 5% to 38% in the UK, from 6% to 36% in France. Though most examples cited belong to Western countries, other non-Western societies are not immune against such social ills and problems. Many communities all over the world imitated Western ways of life aspiring for modernity and social advancements, instead they acquired their ills and wrongdoings. They were not able to acquire Western technology and material prosperity. The Islamic solution. No doubt that there is a strong correlation between the mistreatment of women all over the world and the attitude that these cultures have towards women. Women in Islam are not looked at as the source of evil or an object of sexual gratification and abuse by men, as is the case in other cultures. Islam considers women as integral members of the family and the community. They are a source of happiness and peace. Islam highly praises taking care of women, both old and young. It urges fair and just treatment of women by all members of the society, whether they are daughters, wives, mothers or sisters. Abu Hurairah reported that Prophet Muhammad said, "Let him be a loser, let him be a loser, let him be a loser." Someone said, "Who is he, O Messenger of Allah?" He said, "One whose parents or one of them reached old age with him and did not enter paradise." Jabir said, "I heard the Messenger of Allah saying, one who is deprived of kindness is deprived of goodness." Messenger of Allah had said, "Whoever brings up two girls, he and I will come side by side in the day of judgment." By discussing these great Islamic values, I never intend to claim that all Muslim communities adhere to these teachings and values. Many incidents of malpractices and mistreatment of women among Muslims emerge because of a very salient reason which is repelling against the authentic Islamic teaching. The misery of aging in the West does not exist in a truly practicing Muslim society. The extended family in Islam has worked effectively through history as a safe haven for its members, regardless of their sex or age. Prophet Muhammad said. Abu Hurairah said that Prophet Muhammad had said, "The guardian of a widow or a needy person is just like a person who struggles for the cause of Allah." Anas ibn Malik reported that he heard Prophet Muhammad saying, "He who would like that his sustenance should be expanded and his age be lengthened should he join the tie of kinship." The mixing of exposed women and men according to the data collected by the Epsilon was a major factor in the escalating rate of rape and of battered women. The fact that Islam has prohibited unrestricted mingling between men and women helps to prevent rape crimes in a practicing Muslim society. The rule of modesty applies to men as well as women. A brazen stare by a man at a woman, or even at a man, is a breach of refined manners. Where sex is concerned, modesty is not only good form, it is not only to guard the weaker sex, but also to guard the spiritual good of the stronger sex. Say to the believing men that they should lower their gaze and guard their private parts. That is purer for them. Verily, God is familiar with all that they do. And say to the believing women that they should lower their gaze and guard their private parts and not display their beauty and adornment except that which must ordinarily appear thereof. And that they should draw their head covers over their chests and not display their beauty except to their husbands, their fathers, their husbands' fathers, their sons, their husbands' sons, their brothers' sons, their sisters' sons, their women, what their right hands possess, i.e., slaves, or those male attendants without physical desire. Or small children who are not yet aware of women's privacy. And they should not stamp their feet to make known what they conceal of their adornment. And turn, all of you, O believers, to God in repentance that you may succeed. The Qur'an 2400 hours 30:31. The New York Times published, in May 1993. A report which was entitled Separation is Better. 128. The report was written by Susan Ostrich, who herself was a graduate of one of the few women's colleges in the U.S. It was a shock to most Americans to find that girls in female colleges achieve better academically than their counterparts at mixed colleges. She supported her claim with the following statistics. 80% of girls at female-only colleges study science and math for 4 years, in comparison to 2 years of study in the mixed colleges. Female school students achieve higher GPA than the girls in mixed schools. This leads a higher number of female students to be admitted to universities. In fact, more PhDs were acquired by such female students. According to Fortune magazine, 1/3 of the female members in the boards of trustees in the largest 1,000 American companies are graduates of female-only colleges. To realize the significance of this number, we need to know that graduates of female-only colleges make only 4% of the number of female college students graduating every year. 43% of female professors with PhDs in math and 50% of female professors with PhDs in engineering were graduates of female-only colleges. This is further evidence from the Western world itself that lends support to the validity and applicability of Islamic principles as universal laws guiding or regulating human behavior. The Indian politician and reporter, Kofi Lal Japa, concluded, "No other religion but Islam has the ability to solve the problems of modern life. Islam is indeed unique for that. Separation between men and women is adapted by the Pentagon as a solution to many problems including sexual harassment. Without giving credit to Islam as the system of life that is propagating this practice to maintain morality and social peace and security." Nevertheless, Prince Charles has emphasized the great contributions Islam can provide the West with to overcome their most serious moral and social problems. During a number of his speeches on Islam and the West, William Cohen, the American Secretary of Defense, announced the first phase of a comprehensive plan to maintain a reasonable level of morality among the male and female soldiers. The plan stressed the importance of constructing permanent partitions to separate male and female soldiers in the current mixed buildings. This is only a temporary solution until newly separate buildings are constructed. The Navy also issued a number of strict instructions that prohibit the presence of female and male Navy officers behind closed doors. These instructions were presented as rules that should be respected by all soldiers, especially on board Navy ships. The Defense Secretary emphasized that the rationale behind such measures was to provide a reasonable level of privacy and security for members of the different sectors of defense. Among these new regulations, the restriction of sleeping while wearing underwear or naked, and those doors should be tightly locked during sleeping hours. They also forbid watching pornographic films in the presence of female soldiers, and imposed clearly detailed regulations regarding the type of clothes to be worn when swimming or when sunbathing. The question that we raise here is this: why are such regulations that many would look at as radical and anti-modernization imposed by the most modern country in the world? The answer is very simple: sexual harassment has reached an unbelievably alarming level and has become a threat to national security and morality. Thousands of complaints of sexual harassment by female employees rang an alarming bell. The guidelines of Islam provide the only solution for criminal problems such as alcoholism, drug addiction, abuse of women and children, which are ravaging the world today. When Western influences have encroached into a Muslim society, crime has spiraled, but where the reverse has happened, Islamic values manifesting themselves in Western. A 1994 Gallup poll indicated that 80% of Americans favor the death penalty for convicted murderers. 132 Capital punishment is permitted in 38 states. In addition, some 60 crimes are subject to the federal death penalty. About 3,000 U.S. prisoners are currently on death row. 133 Capital punishment was suspended in the U.S. from 1967 to 1977, but was then restored. Should not one conclude that the moral fate of the world depends on the spread of Islam? Such dramatic change in the attitude of the majority of Americans toward the application of the death penalty against vicious criminals is a strong indicator of the tendency of moving toward workable solutions to the ills of our societies as explained by Islam. In Islam, injustice is regarded as one of the greatest sins. Therefore, oppressing people because they have different beliefs is rejected. Prophet Muhammad said, "The supplication of an oppressed person, even though he be a pagan, is heard by Allah directly, without any veil."